So thank you all for being here today. That I wanted to start off with Fanny's video because I think she couldn't be here today in person, but I think it really is representative of what we're talking about. This idea that moral adoption, of commitment of that kind is as real as anything else to a youth, and that there are very good reasons kids may not want to be adopted. There are other sometimes extraneous reasons why they can't be adopted, which I know Antoinette will talk about, but they have very legitimate reasons possibly for not wanting to be. And we are missing one of our youth who was ill today, so she couldn't make it. But we get to hear the other side of her story because her mom is here. And so she'll get to say anything she wants without anyone interrupting and disputing or disagreeing. But I want to start with Kima, who I've actually known the longest. I have known Kima for probably met you when I started in foster care as a foster parent, maybe 22 years ago, the Speakers Bureau.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a long time. You don't look that old. I do.
You say 22. I'm like, ooh.
You're just as young as you ever were. So you want to tell us a little bit about your story, Kima?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me on the panel. It's been a little while since I've done I call it the foster care circuit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I entered foster care the day before my 10th birthday. I lived in three foster homes, my last one being my forever home when I was 14. She became my heart mommy, the one who carried me in her heart rather than her womb. And I lived with her for a very happy 25 plus years. She did pass in 2019, but she was mom up until till the end.
And did you ever have conversations? Did the agency ever talk to you about adoption? Did it come up? Because the whole time you were with her, you were technically in foster care. You had all the visits from social workers. You had all the permanency hearings every 6 months, and that just went on forever. So was adoption ever thrown out? I know you were never legally freed.
I was free for adoption, but I was never. When they talked about adoption, it was like to say, oh, by the way, you're 13 now, so no one wants you. So if you can just forget about that whole adoption thing. and that was it. That was the end of it. I did talk with my mom about it once, and it was like, it's something to think about. But for me, I didn't feel the need for it. I felt that she was committed to me. She always would say, like from the first day that I came to her home, she was like, you're my daughter for as long as you want to be. And she was true to her word. And so at that time, I didn't feel that I needed to go through that extra hoop, if you will.
Okay. All right, great. Because I remember we had conversations about it too. And, at that time you said, no, you didn't feel a need for it. And you felt, that was your mom. There was no question about it. And you didn't need to change the name or do anything like that. But that was that's a lot of years of being supervised by a system that did not give her any real legal standing or credibility and stuff. I remember at one point you were hospitalized. So she got to visit you. I know she visited you every day. You talked about that a lot, but she still had no real legal ability to do anything, right? Or to call.
Everything had to go through the agency, and then there were things, plans that the agency had that she disagreed with. And it was a battle a little bit. I'm glad that she ultimately prevailed. I think she made decisions that were better for me than the agency could have with their limited knowledge of who I was and what I was actually going through. So it ended up being a little bit of a hassle, definitely at some points, but it worked out when I went to college. So
I know. I had the same thing that I And I think parents know their kids better than anybody, and yet they're still being told, as foster parents, they're still being told how to discipline, how to treat you, how to do things with you, and stuff like that.
Taking
When
medication,
Mhm.
that was a big thing. She
Yeah,
was completely against drugging away my less than stellar behaviors.
yeah,
And I'm grateful that she did, because those things did pass,
yeah.
the time in therapy, and I didn't need to be medicated. And
Right, right.
so that
And that
was,
was, yeah, and that was talked about before, the focus on behaviors as opposed to relationships. And
mhm,
parents, people who take that role as parents know better than anyone else about what their kids need. Um,
mhm.
so that, don't go away, because I want to revisit this and something else at the other end. Kayla, I'm going
Yeah,
to jump on you now because your daughter's missing, so you get to say whatever you like. So, so
Thank
tell
you.
us, how did you get involved in this work? Why did you become a parent?
Um, well, I went through a fertility struggle and then I decided I wanted to adopt. And I came to You Gotta Believe because I had a kinship foster placement of my nephew. And I did my MAP training with You Gotta Believe. And one of the teachers said to me, well, when you're all done, I have someone I want you to meet. And I was like, well, I'm really coming just for my nephew. But
Mhm.
somehow, some way, I actually throughout the MAP training started to grasp the concept that You Gotta Believe had and what they wanted to do. And I fell in love with it. And I was like, okay. So at the end of the training, once I became a certified foster parent, then she introduced me to my now daughter. And she told me she was aging out and she was going to move into an apartment and she just needed someone. So I said, I can be that someone, I guess. And that's how it all started.
And what did she think about your being her someone?
Well, she took me for a test drive. She made me buy her a really expensive lunch. And she was like, okay, maybe, we'll see. And, it kind of went along for a short period of time of her just kind of keeping her distance from me, calling me, and I guess testing me to see if, I would really be there when she called and, if I would support her through everything. And, finally, she was like, okay, you're my person. I was like, okay, I'll take that. And she called me lady for the first 18 months. And
Mhm.
that's kind of how we
Yeah.
ended up.
Now, she, as I remember, when we first had the conversations with her, she said, absolutely not. I'm not interested in anybody. Leave me alone. I don't want to work with You Gotta Believe. I'm going into my apartment. I got this all figured out. I got this. I don't need anybody, blah, blah. And that didn't last. I think it was within 6 months, right? I think she came back. And
Yeah, the apartment thing was a little hard on her. And,
yeah,
she just felt like she wasn't connected to anything other than her caseworker.
right,
And, she didn't want to keep calling her, but, that's when she finally gave in and said, okay, I'm willing.
right. And in terms of actually legal adoption, what have the conversations been like?
Um, they've been like a roller coaster ride at Six Flags. um, we talked about it initially, and she kind of said no, so I dropped it for about 3 years, and then I brought it up again, and she was like, I don't know, maybe."
Mhm.
So I started the paperwork, and then she said, I'm not so sure," and I was like, "Okay." And then she's like, I don't really know that it matters. And I was like,
Mm,
but I realized it mattered more to me than her,
right, right,
you know? And I had to really think it through because the reason why I did it all the way through was just to be a parent. So, what was this going to change or what is this going to change? You know, I don't know that the piece of paper changes anything. It doesn't change anything, honestly.
right.
because I still love her and I still
Right.
jump at her beck and call,
Right.
like 5 a.m. when she called me to wake me up to tell me she was sick.
So, yeah, because Naya, let's name her, has said that she just, and similar to what Fanny said, really, she just feels the connection is as real as it can get. You're her mom. She has always introduced you as her mom and treated you like a mom, abused you like a mom, taken
Yes.
advantage of you like a mom. And it's just, once she got over the initial hesitancy and recognized that, she did want and need someone like you to be in her corner, she embraced it fully. I mean, 100%. She's never, ever, ever wavered. I know there are times she doesn't talk to you, just like a kid stops talking to their mom. There are times because she has her own apartment, she rarely even goes to your house. You've had her room for over 10 years now. she only goes when she's sick, right? I think she goes.
Yes, that's the only time when she needs to get a
Stay.
tooth or something
Yeah.
that, when
Yeah.
she needs an Uber driver,
Right.
then that's what I'm good for.
Right. But as I say, she's always felt, and talking to her recently, she said, yeah, she doesn't see the need for it, but she recognizes that it's important to you. So I'm not sure where she's going to go with that, but she does acknowledge that it's important to you. And I think again, she feels it's unnecessary and she's comfortable with the situation the way it is. So I don't know. Are you gonna sit with that? Are you gonna bring it up again in 3 years?
No, you know what? After this whole symposium and the conversations we've had, I've decided to just table it and let it go. I mean, the only thing that I felt strongly about was I knew that I wanted more children, and
Yeah.
I felt like it was going to be a problem for her
Right.
if she wasn't legally cleaned,
Right.
because the next child could be younger, and then adoption could go through, and that would be an issue for her.
Right.
Well, why'd you do this and didn't do this?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I've always kind of let her decide how this is going to play out, as you can see how
Yeah.
my life plays out. She tells me what to do. She's really the parent.
Well, we'll see. Who knows? These conversations might bring her around. Certainly, I think, because I've always encouraged you to become a parent again, and Naya knows I do that, and she's always mad at me for doing it. And I tell her the room is just sitting there, that you really should get another kid. So, and Naya's always beating me up about that, but we'll see what happens, if anything changes here. So I'm going to jump to Antoinette. And Antoinette, I met recently, actually through the Adoptive and Foster Family Coalition of New York. She was on a work group that I had joined at Pat's request. And I was just so impressed with her commitment, her just being a person who seemed to organically get what this parenting was all about, get what kids needed. And was not caught up in thinking about behaviors and stuff. I know Antoinette is an adoptive and technically a foster parent, but really also morally adopted her other child. So Antoinette, you want to tell us a little bit about your experience, I think particularly with your daughter now, and the challenges that are in the way of your actually adopting her.
Right. Yeah, this is actually, we didn't talk about, but actually when we talk in the context of moral adoptions, this is actually my second time. Yeah, I have an older daughter. She's much older, who was never legally adopted, but is still very much a part of my family. But with this current situation that I'm in, I have a young lady. She's been in my home, my daughter. She's been with me since she was 12 years old. She's about to age out at 21. She was never legally adopted because she didn't, in her situation, it wasn't because she didn't want to be adopted. It was because she could not be adopted because the parental rights were never terminated. There was a number of different things that came up in the process of her being in care for so long, aside from the fact that her parental rights were not terminated. But that was the major stumbling block for her, because she did want to be adopted. She asked to be adopted. And at the point where she had expressed to the agency that she does not want to go home, then they said, oh, well, you'll be 18 years old. It's too much trouble now to even attempt to go through the process of trying to get you adopted. So they just more or less squashed the whole idea of her being adopted. And there were other issues that were involved too, included in her case, because the system could be really bad. They could be really bad. And they did not, she had an issue with immigration as well.
Yeah.
So that was also a stumbling block. But she did want to be adopted. She could not be adopted. And I don't know if part of her concern was that without that commitment, that she would somehow not be a part of the household.
Right.
And, I had to really reassure her that her aging out, which I don't believe that she should have to have done that,
Right.
but by her having to age out of care, because that's the only option they offered her was Applin. You just have to stay there. We're going to hold you. I tell them that they're holding her hostage to the system, because they're holding her against her will. She does not want to be in foster care, but she has no choice at this point but to be in foster care. So, but I have tried to the best of my ability to reassure her that my commitment to her goes beyond just the adoption, and it goes to, be a hubby. I'm echoing. I don't know why. Do you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it goes to my commitment to her beyond that. The adoption for me and for her would have just meant that connection with foster care, which a lot of kids struggle with, it would end, and I think that was important. That was a major piece for her, and it's still a major problem for her. She does not want the worker every month to work one. Well, now they can't go to her school because she's in college, so they're not going to go to the college.
Right.
Coming to her school once a month, coming to the home once a month. And then it was a constant turnover of the workers. So she had not established a relationship with any one worker, even though that's not the optimal kind of relationship.
Right.
If it was more permanent, more stable,
Yeah.
that might have been more meaningful for her, but she didn't have that either. Because no longer know how she become, because she's not a very open person. So when she started to be relaxed and open up, then that worker was gone.
Right.
And within since the pandemic, she's already gone her third or fourth worker. Just in this period of time, initially she did have one, but in this period of time, there's been a significant turnover. So that's where we're at with in terms of my moral adoption to her, my commitment to her, because that's what it is my commitment to her. And when they talked about some things that I never thought about in the context of our relationship, but in hearing everyone talk, it was like we went through some really rough times, some real things that I didn't give up on her. Times when they said, "Oh, so do you want us to? Are you going to keep her?"
Right.
I didn't say I was getting rid of her because this happened. Just telling you, we all, I have to report to our grandparents, which is ACS, to tell them what's going on when something happens. Oh, they will find out anyway what's going on with her. So of course they have to know, but their resolve for everything is, are you going to keep her? That's the first question they ask. To let her go? Are they going to move her? That kind of thing. So I showed her that my commitment to her was what it would be to any of my children.
Right.
They all slip, they all fall, they all have made errors in their life. And my commitment to her went beyond, as you say, the behaviors.
Yeah.
It didn't, if the behavior was something at the time or something went on or happened that I was not so happy with, but I had to deal with it. Just like any parent would have to deal with a child's behavior. I had to work with her and show her and commit to her that, there is another way. And this is not the end of your life. And this is just another situation that we got to deal with right now that we're going to work through.
Right. And I think that reaction of the agencies is so typical because, well, often, you know, they don't even know how to talk to you about how to handle behaviors.
No.
So, right. So as the parents, we have to figure that out. And again, as we mentioned with Kima, whatever they're suggesting is not the right thing for this child anyway. They may be following some protocol, but we know our kids better, and we know how to respond to them, react to them, and engage them, really. And so, you know, and that puts us at odds with the agency often.
Many times, many times it puts you at odds, because I like to let them know that, you know what, while I know I have responsibilities to let the agency know what happens, I run what goes on in here. And as long as I'm not abusive or mistreating this child, let me make some decisions about how to handle situations or how to address it or how we're going to move forward. You know, I don't need them to come in, and because that takes away from our relationship.
Exactly.
They are dictating how we move forward or how things happen. And that doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I know it doesn't work for her. It just doesn't work. So, you know.
And then you get into triangulation, you know, about who's, and no, I'm the parent. And I spent years and years and years, and I was never really given that kind of respect. I was still, after, I mean, years and many kids and many commitments and adoptions. It's just impossible to think that they wouldn't give me credit.
No, they don't. They don't give you credit. They don't consult with you on anything.
Right.
And they, you know, I have most recently, and I think I talked to you about this, Mary. She's got, as we know, I know that she's getting ready to, she's going to be 21.
Yeah. Yeah.
What do? They send her, mind you, they didn't talk to me. They send her a packet of papers, of documents.
Yes.
That 90-day notice to discharge you.
Yes. Yes.
And they just sent her a whole bunch, no meeting, no cover letter, no nothing. I had to write them a note and ask, is this the way you guys discharge student out of care? Because this doesn't make any sense. You know, she may have questions. I have questions.
Yeah.
What does this mean? You send me a paper. Now suddenly I have rights to be her, or what do they call it? Healthcare proxy. Now they send me all the paperwork. It didn't even say me. It just said they gave her some paperwork to assign a healthcare proxy and some other paperwork that she has to sign. And they did that without having had any kind of meeting or conversation with her about the process or about moving forward or about anything. And it's, you know, if I had a hands-off kind of relationship with her, then she would have to navigate through this nonsense on her own. And it makes absolutely no sense. How do you discharge a child from care by handing them a stack of paper and telling them good luck?
Right. And how many years? She's been with you a long time.
Yes, she's been with me since she was 12. She's 21. Is that 8 years? You know?
Right. And you have no standing.
No standing, none.
Right.
No standing, other than in her eyesight and in my mind.
Yes.
In my mind.
Well, that's where it really counts, and emotionally is where it counts. But yeah, and that really is the problem, that we have no legal authority. You know, as I say, now I could say it because I'm out of the system, but for years and years and years, I signed things I had no business signing. Okay, well, you be careful because you're still in. But and I would show up and I would say, you know, I'm the parent, and no one ever asked me for anything or proof or a birth certificate or anything like that. So I would do that with schools, with their therapy. Their workers were never involved with their life, which is what they wanted, other than coming once a month, which was maddening, absolutely maddening. Right. That went on for years because, again, I had no standing. They had to stay in foster care until they were 21. And so those are the things I think what we're proposing can stop. We can stop a young lady from staying in foster care for absolutely no reason when she has a permanent parent, and get her out into a different kind of category.
Yeah, that's it. I'm sorry. That's the other issue that was talked about that I'm currently dealing with, because the other option was kin gap or kinship guardianship. And guess what? as that conversation said, I'm not eligible for that.
Right,
Because I was a foster parent. I did not know her before she
Right.
came into care.
right,
So it was not my goal to just sever her parents' rights, but to offer her permanency. But because I didn't have that connection to her before she came into care, that is not an option that was open to her or to me.
yeah,
She wanted adoption, but I was willing to, if she wanted adoption, I would have
Right.
adopted her. But if we could have gotten kin gap,
right,
I was open to
Right.
doing that as well.
Right.
Neither of which is open to us. And that's why, again, I say she's being held hostage by the
Yeah.
system.
yep, absolutely. Thank you, Antoinette, that was great. And Guy, now we seem to have lost Guy altogether. Oh, here, Guy's coming back. Guy's having some technical difficulties.
There you go, guy. He said,
Yeah, there he is. Are we getting Guy back? Come on, Guy. Someone asked about accessing the recording. That'll be sent to everybody, I think. As many young men as Guy had, you'd think he'd be a little more tech savvy. But you heard that guy.
Yes, I did.
I know you did.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you. They haven't
Finally. I'm-
taught you tech.
Yeah, they have, but none of the device, my computer wasn't working. I don't know what was
Okay,
going on.
okay. So Guy, thank you so much for joining. I know you're a busy guy. And actually I think Kayla may have to drop off. I think Kayla thank you so much, Kayla. Thank you. So Guy, tell us a little bit about your story. You've been all over the place. You've been all over publicity and stuff like that, but tell us in a little synopsis what you do. What have you done?
I have a home. That's it. I have the same kind of home that I grew up in. We took in everybody. If you needed a place to live, my family took people in. So that's the only life I know. So it's not really about adoption for me. It's about providing a safe place for somebody who doesn't have one.
Right.
And that's what it's been all of these years. So I've been pretty lucky and successful, and these are my kids regardless of how old they get.
Yeah.
They don't have to have my name. They don't have to have any papers. They're my kids, and they know that. If you're hungry, if you need to take a shower, if you're on the street, if you're not doing well, you're still my kid. So my door is open. I very rarely take back keys when they leave, because there's no reason to. This is home, so I can come home at any point, and somebody will be there that had lived there at one point, and then I always know there's something going on because this person came in and didn't call, and there's something up. But it's just the way of life for me at this point.
And how do you lay the groundwork, Guy, when they come in? Like, because I know these young men have been other homes before, and they've had different experiences, and they have certain expectations, I'm sure, that you're just going to be another temporary home. How do you get them to believe that you're different?
I think food. I think unlimited access to food. And
for young men, yes.
Always works.
Yeah, unlimited access to food. There's always ample food, and you don't have to ask, can you eat this? And you don't have to. I don't know. It usually it's the ground. The ground is there then. Once they can trust you with the food, they start to see other things. And then the interaction with people that lived there at one point,
Right.
people that live there when they come, they see that interaction and say, I want to be a part of this.
Right.
And that's just what happens. So
Right.
I think the food and the general interaction that this is your home regardless of what might happen. I think those are the things that help.
Right. It's funny, the food thing, and having heard so many stories over the years where food is restricted in homes, refrigerators are locked, they can't eat after a certain time. They don't get the same food that the birth children get or things like that. Food is an enormous, enormous issue for our kids, being restricted from it.
Yeah,
So
it is.
actually that's the first time I've heard that, Guy, but that is very funny and very appropriate.
It's one of I learned that really when one of my kids, we were on Good Morning America, and he said, I came from a place where the kitchen, the refrigerator, everything was locked.
Yeah.
So to have access at any time, if you want to make hamburgers and French fries at
Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
go ahead. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it's there for.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely the basis of it is right there. Food is very important. Food is love to them, and
Yeah.
basically that's it.
That's great. Well, it clearly has worked. You've had, I don't know how many kids, we're not going to get into counting and competing, but I know you've been a phenomenal dad to so many young men, and that they have relied on you, and you've been that person. And I know, again, adoption has not been an issue for you, and you don't think it's an adoption for them, right?
No,
Right.
a lot of them, as they get older, the adoption is not an option for them. They
Right.
don't want to be adopted,
Right.
but they want that family connection.
Right.
It has come up, but like it'll come up and then they'll say, nah, we don't need that. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it just, you're here, I'm here, and you're always welcome to be here.
Yeah.
I mean, not every, like, I don't want to take away your family. Like
Right.
right now, I have 2 kids in my home who are not at foster care, and their father came up and he was homeless. And like, at first he was sitting in the front yard, and then I went out and I talked to him and he told me what happened. So I was like, okay. I said, so, I know you're here to see your son. I'm going to put you up for the weekend. And I allowed him to stay at the house for the weekend. He was very respectful, polite, no problem. He ate, he went out with his kids, and his kids are actually 19 and 22.
Right.
And I don't draw those lines. I want them to be connected to their
Right.
family. That's their blood, that's their
Right.
family. I can still be there for you, and you can still be with your family. I have no issue with that. Doesn't make me a great person if I'm not allowing you to try to heal things. And one of the
Right.
conversations was with one of the kids, and the father was that, you kind of burn bridges in life. And like, just to hear him say that and able to speak that to his father, I was very impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. And I think the only difference that I know we talked about, and I've talked to Antoinette and others about it, is that you haven't had, as much as your commitment is real and serious and firm and permanent, you don't have the legal standing. I know we talked about that with a couple of
Right.
instances where there have been
Right.
medical issues and stuff, and you always had to, even though you were the one in their life and the one taking care of them and stuff, you always had to find the birth parents or brothers or something like that. So I
Right.
think that for me is the only issue with my kids who are not legally adopted. That
And
again,
it is a big issue.
it's a huge issue
It is.
that,
And I have a problem. There's a lot with it.
Yeah.
That comes along with that.
Yeah.
And people, it may seem like something not significant, but it's very significant.
Very.
As I shared with you, I had a kid who was in the hospital in another state, and one of the nurses recognized him from one of the videos on Good Morning America,
wow.
and he was in a coma, and they wanted me to make decisions. I said, I can't, I don't, I have no connection legally that I can make those, but fortunately through Facebook, I was able to find his mother and father, who were pretty upstanding people and had good jobs, and flew down to South Carolina to their son, and got there in time to make the decision. But it was just such a, like, I thought about what could happen on the other end of that had I not been able to do that. So I agree, we should have some kind of something, some kind of, to make things a little easier.
Yep, agreed. So, so thank you again. I think, yeah, I think our commitment is clear. I think our kids get our commitment. I think the legal adoption is not necessary, but there should be something that gives us some kind of standing and stuff like that. Any final words from any of the panelists for people to that relate to this? The idea of the significance of a moral adoption and the importance and what is missing, if anything. Pima?
So not to be morbid,
No.
but I love hearing how you all are committed to the children in your care, adoption paper aside. But the reality is your commitment may just be your own, and you may feel that your extended family feels the same way you do, has the heart that you have. That might not be the case.
Right.
And so do, and again, not to be morbid, but do.
No, I'm glad. You told me this, so I was gonna ask. I wasn't sure if you were comfortable bringing it up, but I think it's important and it relates to this idea about any kind of legal standing.
Yes,
So.
with your estate planning, put it in writing that you want something to go to your children, what you want to go to each of them, not just, thinking, oh yeah, my family's going to do right by them. No, they don't. They do not.
Right.
And I realized real quick where my standing was when my mom passed. I was like, oh wow, really? I was listed under the section where if in her obituary where they put her she liked gardening and going to estate sales. So that's where oh, and by the way, she was a foster parent. So yeah, they didn't even put foster parent. They're like, oh, she was also taking care of kids. So it was very hurtful. So you do, if not that she had money to leave or anything.
No,
like that,
yeah, it's not about
but
that.
it was just acknowledgement. This was mom for
Right.
25 years and
Right.
that all went out the window. So I
Right.
do recommend that, until we have something more permanent, when while we're still depending on moral adoptions,
Yeah.
put what you can into writing. And so if you want to provide for your children,
Yeah.
make your wishes known now and make it official.
You're right. Thanks.
I
Kim.
agree 100%. In fact,
Yeah.
my group, I have a community-based foster and adoptive parent group. I'm going to be hosting next month an estate planning.
Yeah.
And that's a part of it because I do have children that I don't want to leave here and count on people being nice. So you're 100% right about that. We
Yeah.
do, because you see it, listen, even in families themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't even have to be the adopted or foster kid.
Yeah.
When things happen, people get crazy.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is
Extremely.
very important. It is something that we do have to consider. It's something that I am considering that needs to be done in order to protect
Right.
the lives of those people who I committed to. And I
Right.
committed to them, and I want to make sure they understand that commitment goes beyond my being here.
Right.
So you're right. It's not
Right.
morbid. It makes good sense.
It's practical and has to be done. Yeah.
Right.
Any final words, Guy?
No, I definitely agree with it. I've made arrangements for
Yeah.
some of my youth who have lived with me, and they one in particular knows everything that has to be done, and he can tell my family, and my family is quite aware of him and his position in my life. So they would go to him if anything happened. So I have that kind of, actually, they definitely welcome him as family member, and they
Right.
would go to him and say, well, what did he want to do? And he'd
Right.
be able to tell them everything.
Right.
So I have made those arrangements. And I agree with it. I mean, it's like I've seen family fights, or siblings fight over
Yes.
different things, and at funerals and after the
Yeah.
funeral. And,
Yeah.
mom said I could get this, dad said I could get that.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
I would never want that. I wouldn't
Right.
want that,
We don't want
because
that.
my kids are important to me, and they should be important to my family as well.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, thank you again. Thank you, all of you. This was great. Really, really important topics, and
Yeah.
really exactly what we were looking for. So thank you all. I will see you all in other places at other times.
Thank you.
I like
Thank
that.
you.
Thanks again for joining. Kima,
Good
great
to
to
see
see you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.